What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Alex here from Team Generations, and today we are going to be looking at an updated list for Sylvan Beast King Magnolia. So of course, this is the very aggressive aggro deck that we got out of OverDress for Stoicheia. I really personally like this deck. I think this is a great anti-meta pick if you have a lot of bastions running around in your area. Definitely pick this up. It's very, very cheap. I think it's just an effective way to kind of deal with them in general. Overall, I did a lot of testing with this deck, and I'm kind of happy where I arrived at with the deck. I think that if you apply the right mindset, this deck is definitely super solid. It probably isn't, tier 1A like a Bruce, Bastion, that kind of deal, but, could hang around there with Nirvana and kind of decks around that level. So I am personally very happy with the support that we did receive out of this set. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. I'll start with the ride line, go over the deck profile, and then I'll do a test hand at the end. All right, before we begin, I just wanted to thank everybody so far who has subscribed. We're at over 600 subs. Cannot believe it. Thank you guys so much. It's a huge achievement for this channel. Very, very appreciative. Thank you guys, all you guys, so much. Additionally, if you are interested in purchasing any of these cards, we do have a TCG affiliate link down below. If you guys go through that, help support the channel. Absolutely no cost to you. Definitely helps us though. Helps us bring more of these deck profiles to you, more of these cards in general. So again, thank you so much, and go through that link. But without further ado, let's hop right into the ride line. So we're going to keep everything standard, pretty much kosher the way it was last time around. So we're going to start with the grade 0. Start with the one. This is just the ride line from the trial deck. I will say the only thing that has really changed over here is the Sylvan Hornbeast Lattice. We don't always want a Soul Blast now for its skill. Sometimes there are other cards in this deck now. This is a very early aggression kind of rush build that I have. And with that being said, sometimes we want to save that Soul Blast for another card. So sometimes just take into consideration where you're at in the game, see if you really want to be Soul Blasting at that moment. And I will say that's the only kind of mental thing that has changed so far. But otherwise, Sylvan Hornbeast basically giving a Magnolia, kind of giving us that extra attack, which is super solid. Might not be as big as Bastion, but at least it is guaranteed. So I personally like this ride line. I really like the artwork on a lot of this. I wish I had the SP of everything, but cannot do that unfortunately right now. Just not my main clan, I'll say. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop right into the deck profile. Alright, hopping right into the main deck now. So we are running 3 additional copies, just starting off, of Magnolia. By the way, if you are new and you want to check out these cards a little bit more in depth, go check out my original video on this. I do kind of put up all the skills and go a little bit more in depth, reading the cards exactly. But yeah, 3 more of these guys. I know that I said this is kind of like an early rush build, but in a way, if the game does somehow go longer, you need to be persona riding in order to kind of secure yourself a little bit more hand, a little bit more power, which is huge in this deck, and essentially just giving that guaranteed full back row to an attack. So I really do like this. I think that we definitely need to run this at 4 of. I don't think there's too much of a debate there. Moving right along, so this is currently, I believe, our most effective kind of Soul Charger. This is going to be Sylvan Hornbeast Elorante. This skill, auto on rearguard circle when this unit attacks. If there are 2 or more units in front of this unit, this guy gets an additional 5k until the end of battle. And if there are 3 or more units, you get to Soul Charge 1. So essentially, you put this in a column where you have a rearguard and your opponent has 2 rearguards there. Not too difficult. I feel like a lot of people do call rearguards in the back row these days. It's just kind of typical in OverDress, unlike some of V-Series. I feel like you just fill up your front row. But regardless, I think that the Soul Charge is so necessary, and as such, we need to see this guy a little bit later in the game, especially we're going dry. If we don't persona ride, you run out of soul so quickly. So this guy is huge. On top of that, you give the 5k with Sylvan Hornbeast Magnolia, and then on top of the 5k that he gets right here, it becomes a 23k. So it's at least a 15k to guard. If you gave additional power, obviously it becomes harder to guard too, but it's at least a 15k 1 card guard, which is nice. Otherwise, they have to drop over 3 5k bodies, which really just sucks. So not too bad overall. I think that, without it costing anything, it definitely deserves a spot in this deck and helps us Soul Charge. Moving on, that is it for the grade 3s over here. We're going to be looking at a brand new grade 2 actually, and I think this one is absolutely necessary. This is Sylvan Hornbeast Damaru, I think. Its skill auto when this unit is placed on rearguard circle. If our Vanguard is Sylvan Hornbeast King Magnolia, we get to cost Soul Blast 1, choose one of your rearguards, and until the end of turn, that unit can attack from the back row and gets 5k. And then its second skill auto once per turn when this unit is chosen by your Vanguard's effect. This guy gets 5k until the end of turn. So really an interesting skill. It's basically, you can choose itself to give that extra attack from the back, so it doesn't need to be chosen by Magnolia. If you do put Magnolia, if you're Persona Road, that second 5k skill is kind of free. If you choose this with Magnolia, that's absolutely fine. You still get that 5k. Just a versatile card, and really opens up a line of play to give us 5 attacks on our first turn. So basically you attack with 3 of your front row units, right? That would be, your Vanguard and 2 others. Additionally, you can give itself that Soul Blast 1, attack from the back ability, as well as your Vanguard giving an additional rear guard that attacks. So if you wanted to go for more like a poke style, rush your opponent down, you went first, that's definitely the line of play I would kind of go for. Overall, I think this is like a really, really great card. I think it definitely was a necessary addition to the decks, and I'm super excited to see what the future kind of holds for this clan. So yeah, running this guy at 4 of. Alright, moving right along, and then this is, I guess we get kind of techie now in the grade 2s, but I'm still running 2 of this guy. This is Sylvan Hornbeast Lattice, again, kind of from the ride line. This guy's skill, essentially, when this unit attacks Vanguard Soul Blast 1, get 10k, obviously we went over the ride line part, but just that extra 10k really does become threatening. Sometimes, you give that extra 5k from your Magnolia, put it on him, he becomes a 15k, which is good in and of itself, but to make that a 25k, that is a 15k to guard again. Like, if your opponent, the number of attacks that you have in this deck, if your opponent just doesn't have the hand size, doesn't have these big guard numbers, they're going to be shredding through their hand really, really quick if they don't hit a defensive trigger. So that is definitely a solid thing overall. Again, the deck does run through some of its Soul Blast kind of quickly with this, but at the same time, I feel like that power is just so necessary. So I personally am running this at 2 of, and I think I like it at that ratio. Moving right along, we still have an oldie but goldie from the first set too. This is going to be Sylvan Hornbeast Gunecia. Again, in the back row, essentially when it attacks, you can counterblast 1, choose one of our other rear guards, it gets this unit's power until the end of turn. So again, even if you didn't hit a trigger, we can give another 10k to another unit. So for a counterblast, I feel like sometimes in this deck it doesn't exactly work. Like, at times your opponent will kind of starve you down, or they know that's the way to kind of get around Magnolia, so at times this becomes a dead card, which is why I trimming it down to that 1 of, but overall I really do like that. Like, if you hit an overtrigger, put it on this, pop that over to your another unit, it just becomes so huge. Like, it makes these like unguardable numbers across the board. So if you have 2 open counterblasts for your turn, I think that you will be pretty impactful with this guy over here if you do hit a trigger. So yeah, I kind of still like that line of play in general. Running that guy at a 2 of. And now, next up, we are going to be looking at the true kind of core of this deck, what this deck kind of transformed into, and that is going to be 4 of Sylvan Hornbeast Kusi. So this guy's skill previously, it wasn't that useful, but with another card I'm going to introduce in just a second, this really became a main staple of the deck. So this guy basically cannot be ridden, and it can only be called to the back row rear guard center circle. So that's kind of restrictive. At first, you look at this guy and say, hey, this just boosts Magnolia. That's not that great because I'm going to Persona Ride. And even if if you Persona Ride or whatever, I mean, you're going to give the ability to your back row to attack. But if you did Persona Ride, yeah, it just attacks on the back. That's absolutely fine. But the real zinger here, the thing that makes this work, obviously you guys probably know this, is Maiden of the Deep, Impression Erusia. This guy's skill continues on rearguard circle. When you would move or swap rearguards during your main phase, you could also swap in the same row. So not just columns up and down, you can now go vertical, left and right. And then continues on rearguard circle. The unit in front of this unit cannot be chosen by your unit's card's effects. So basically you would call this down to a rearguard circle, put this behind it, and make a 15k, untargetable kind of creature in the front row. 15k is huge because they can't just swing into them. Even, let's say, they need like a 1 to pass, they need to be boosted, things of that nature. Like, they're just bigger than like a regular, hey, look, you hit a trigger, you put it on your Vanguard, I have a 10k rear guard, guess what, I'm gonna swing. It doesn't work anymore like that. They need to at least boost it. So I think that it just becomes a little bit more resilient, and this really adds like a whole layer of just pressure in the beginning of the game. If you have 2 Kusis in your hand and one of her, just rush them down, like put both of them out, have them in the front row, swing at them, they survive, they last a little bit longer. You can call them on your first grade 1 turn, and then still have them last your grade 3 turn and still be effective units swinging by the end of your grade 3 turn, your first grade 3 turn. Like, that is super value right there. So my whole strategy with this is to really rush down, beat my opponent down as much as you can, make them have kind of like an impoverished hand state by the time you're on your grade 3, and really finish them off with like the barrage of multi-attacks that this deck now allows you to do. So I am very much a fan of this. I think this does work. Again, there are certain times where your opponent hits like defensive triggers and it's just gonna feel a little bit bad, but overall I think the risk is definitely worth it, and it definitely pays dividends. If they don't hit a defensive trigger, like, it's a very, very tough deck to kind of get around. Moving right along to our final grade 1, of course we are running the PGs. If you can't afford these, go and get the trial deck ones, no big deal, but this guy is just different in that, of course, you can discard just this alone if you have 2 or less cards in your hand. Very, very effective, especially if you're holding 2 of them at the end of the game. So yeah, 4 PGs, of course. And then moving right along, this is actually a new order card. I'm a huge fan of this card. This guy is Wild Intelligence. Its skill, play this with Counterblast 1. Discard 3 cards on the top of your deck. Choose up to one of those cards with the same grade as your Vanguard or lower from your drop goal to rearguard circle. If our Vanguard is Sylvan Beast King Magnolia, choose up to 2 cards instead of 1. So again, this is a grade 0, so you can play this earlier in the game, but me typically with my playstyle, I like to kind of hold it towards the end of the game. I really do like to kind of replenish my field, because that was like a huge issue. This deck, you know, it has the top calls from like your ride line, but overall had a difficult time like replenishing its field. You could have used some of the orders before too, but overall, like, I think this is just so much better. Obviously, if your Vanguard is Magnolia, you get 2 instead of 1, so that's why I kind of like to hold it. But I think this is just a great card overall, and I think it definitely has to be maxed out at that 4 of. Alright, and that wraps it up for the main deck. We're going to get into triggers now, so I am going to be running 4 heals. Obviously, no surprise there. I'm choosing to run a lot of crits in this deck, so I am going to be running 8 crits, and instead of front triggers, I am actually still running draws. Draws and then the PG. So reason I'm running crits, front's just not as impactful in this deck. I've tried it with that just for the pure sake of shield. I think that it's really crits that end the game for you here. You have to make sure that like you're swinging for like lethal. They're not just these little jabs. And even if, you know, you did hit the front trigger, like you still have a whole entire back row, which you could possibly be putting it on a Gunecia, making 2 crit kind of attacks instead of 1, with the little sharing guy over here. So I think it's just way more impactful overall. You could try out the fronts if you want, like totally fine, nobody's going to tell you how to play it, but overall this is what I'm finding to work. And I think, like I said too, our hand size isn't the greatest in this deck, so the draws definitely help. And the over trigger for Stoicheia is pretty good. Like, it's an omni trigger, you get that extra draw, get that extra crit, get that front K, 10k to the 10k to the front row, and you do get to heal an additional card too, so it could be big. Kind of changes the tide of some games overall. I really do like it, so we're going to include it in the deck. I think it's better than the base what is the Cray Elemental trigger. Do I have that over here? I think I do. I will say the only thing with the Cray Elemental, if you go heavier in Gunecia, you can select, so this gives an additional 100 million to another unit. Obviously, you can choose your Gunecia, you can choose what was it, another unit as well, and give basically 300 millions instead of just 2, because you're going to give 1 somewhere from the base trigger, another from its effect, which is the Gunecia. When Gunecia swings, Counterblast 1, give the 100 million to another. So it basically becomes like a PG or GG, but overall, I think the value of the Omni trigger here with the, how do you say this, the Blessed Favor? I don't even know. I think it's just too high not to include. So cool. Thank you guys so much for watching so far. Again, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button on the channel. Possibly leave a like on the video if you have liked it so far. And let's hop right into a test, and I'll show you guys how the deck kind of plays out. Alright, awesome. Let's shuffle up over here. Also, I did burn my fingers, so I'm sorry if I'm kind of like not as nimble with these cards over here, shuffling around. Just hurts a little bit, so cool. Let's hop right into it. Again, I really do like this deck. I think that it's super fun whenever I play it and I hit the right cards, get into that flow state kind of a game. It just really feels awesome in a way that a lot of other decks in this format just don't. I feel like this is such a free-flowing deck in a way. Like, yeah, you do have to think of your attack orders, things of that nature, but at the same time too, it feels very natural to me. I feel like if you played V Premium or even Premium, where you have to be attacking on Excel circles, you kind of already have the idea of like, hey, I need to make sure I get my attack pattern down, or, you know, this or that thing kind of right. So I really do like this deck, and I think the support that we did receive for it might not be game-breaking, but it is very, very good, and I'm very happy with it. So we'll see just how far the deck can go in set 3, which I'm super excited for. Again, if you guys are interested in purchasing any of these cards, we do have a TCG player affiliate link. Definitely helps us out quite a bit, helps us afford some of these cards. There we go. Let's check out what we got in our hand. So we're gonna put the heal back. Overall, it's actually a really decent hand. I think I'm gonna keep all 4 of the other ones. I am pretty set. Yeah, I'm gonna just discard this. I'm gonna shuffle that back in, mulligan, draw. All right, no big deal, but probably gonna discard that shield a little bit earlier on. We want to have Counterblast for later turns, and I want to actually rush them down. We'll see what we can do. And just like in all of our test stand videos, we are actually going to pretend to go first just to make things a little bit easier. So let's hop right into it. Let's stand up our Vanguard over here, and let's stand and draw. Alright, now we are going to discard, I'm actually going to discard this card over here. I'm going to discard that. I'm going to ride up into my Vanguard. I'm going to pass it over to my opponent. I'm going to take 2 damage, 1. Let's actually just take 1 then, because we got a trigger on that. That's fine, and they're going to pass it over to us. We are now going to stand and draw again. You know, it really does hurt, but I think I am going to discard this guy. Games typically don't go past your first Persona ride, so in general, if you have 2, It's not the greatest idea to ditch it, you know, if you have better stuff to ditch, but at this point, these cards are just too valuable to do that. So I ditched the Magnolia, and I'm going to ride up into him. Then I'm going to use his skill. I'm going to look at the top card of our deck. It's a grade 2 or less unit. This is not, so this goes to my drop, right? If it's a grade 2 or less card called derived, then put it into your soul. Okay, that's actually good. So it's going into my soul. Whoops, I forgot about that. All right, cool. So stacking our soul, not terrible, not a bad way to go. I'm gonna play this card over here, and now this allows me to kind of get around, and I'm gonna swap these guys and move this up, and move this over here. Also going to do the same with this guy. Boom, boom. All right, so I'm gonna poke with one of these, right? This is 15, 8. So this is going to be 23. Even if they hit a trigger, they're not gonna be able to guard that. You know, if they do hit a trigger off this guy. So I'm going to poke first here. If they do hit a trigger, it's 1 to pass. Even if I do hit it, I can put the power here, still hit, and still threaten for a hit here if they only hit 1 defensive trigger. So I'm going to swing here next. This is going to be 10. Boom. All right, no trigger. And then, you know, even if they did hit a trigger, this is 15, 8, this is 23. They're just going to be at an 18k base, so they need to drop at least more than a 5k guard, which is, you know, pretty impactful at this point of the game. I know our hand state isn't great right now, but we'll see how it goes out. Let's see, we're going to take damage 1 and 2. We did heal out 1 right there. Let's say that we did do that. Cool. All right, we're going to now stand and draw. Here we are. All right, and again, I guess it might not be the right move, but I'm going to ditch the shields. We are going to go right into this guy. Since we have that extra soul, I am going to use it. I think I can, you know, risk it for the biscuit here. Let's see what we get. We are, of course, just getting triggers. That's all we get. Let's actually boost this guy here. All right, and let's pop him down. You know what? I'm actually going to Soul Blast 1. I'm going to choose her, and then this guy gets an additional 5k, so it's at least going to threaten for a hit. And then with my Magnolia, I'm going to choose him, so we at least get 5 attacks. Pretty decent overall. I'm going to swing with this guy. I'm going to 1. Let's go crit power, let's say, over here. 2. Oh, wow, we healed. Let's say we don't heal just because they're at more than us now, but we are going to assign the power, I don't know, maybe to our front row guy over there. Over here, actually, yeah, let's do that. We are now going to swing. Oh, whoops, I forgot to boost with him. And I'm going to counterblast to give the attack to him. He gets the extra 5k. Who did I give? I gave power here and here, I believe. Whatever it is, doesn't really matter. But you see the 5 attacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we are. And that is really the idea of the deck. Get them to just rush down. Like, I am attacking with 15k columns, a 23k column, like, really not too bad. In the early game, just to continuously be putting up these numbers is pretty good. And ironically, if you go second in this deck, I feel like it does put more pressure on them because you are attacking a bit earlier. You're attacking 1 turn earlier. I know that their turns pretty much are a little bit more powerful, but it's not the worst thing in the world to go second in this deck. I think that overall the playstyle is very fun. I enjoy like the multi-attack kind of thing, and if you are like me and enjoy that, I think you definitely will have a great time with this deck. So again, thank you guys all so much. I definitely appreciate all the love you've been receiving lately. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I see every like, see every comment. I really do appreciate it. So again, this is Alex from Team Generations signing out.